Good morning and welcome to another edition of Let It Be Known. I am your host, Stacy Brown.
Peace and love, everybody. I'm Niele Anderson, your co-pilot. And come on in. We have lots of headlines to get through this morning. I mean, we're talking about Dame Dash, of course, that video going viral. News on the Washington Commanders, or maybe Redskins, if Donald Trump gets his way. And inflation continues to rise. We have those stories and so much more.
Yeah, but first, let's go to our producer's choice for our top story.
I haven't really heard anyone say this, but the callous memes and jokes about Charlie Kirk's murder are a direct byproduct of the didn't do nothing era. And if you don't know what didn't do nothing means, then you need to watch this video. And if you do, you should stay because a lot of this will resonate with you. So let's rewind to the early 2010s. Imagine you come home, you turn on the news, and you hear about Trayvon Martin, who was a 17-year-old that was shot and killed by a vigilante while holding a bag of Skittles. Or you see the footage of 12-year-old Tamir Rice, who was shot and killed by police while holding a toy gun. Or Eric Garner being choked to death while saying that he couldn't breathe. Or Sandra Bland, who was wrongfully arrested and later found dead in jail. For many of you who were adults at the time, the tragedy and horror, as terrible as it was, pretty much ended there with the killings themselves and reconciling the injustice that happened. But the rest of us, Gen Z and millennials, who were mostly children at the time, the killings were just where the trauma began. Because that's when the internet exploded with the most shocking and vile memes and jokes about these people who had just died. And the didn't do nothing meme was practically the face of this era. It was a ignorant and purposely fake African-American English way of saying he didn't do anything, as a way for online trolls and racists to mock grieving Black families who claim that their loved ones were unarmed and undeserving of death. But make no mistake, it was not just this one meme. There was actually a whole ecosystem of cruel and edgy content that was meant to desensitize people and normalize making fun of Black people dying. For example, this was a trend called Trayvoning, where white teenagers would dress up in a hoodie and lie face down with Skittles and a can of soda to mock the way in which Trayvon Martin's dead body was found. And more recently, we had the George Floyd challenge, which is pretty self-explanatory. This sort of online cruelty was foundational for the alt-right pipeline. No regard for the families of the victims of police violence and little regard for the facts. And this dehumanizing content was born in the dark corners of websites like Reddit and 4chan. But what started out as edgy jokes in those places spilled over into YouTube comments, Facebook threads, and eventually mainstream conservative discourse. And while Charlie Kirk may not have been at the beginning of this phenomenon, nor was he necessarily the furthest right, he absolutely benefited from its culture and actively participated in its expansion. He spread content that told lies and was meant to smear figures like Breonna Taylor and George Floyd soon after, if not immediately after they were killed. And just to add on to that, a lot of people are focusing on only the direct quotes from Charlie Kirk himself, but that leaves out the organization that he founded and just how badly it contributed to this issue. Now, back then until now, many activists have said the solution is to teach people about why it's wrong to dehumanize others and implement stronger and smarter content moderation against hate speech. Instead, right-wing voices and Silicon Valley executives called that woke and just tore down all the rules. Of course, this made things worse and fueled even worse radicalization. For example, I recently wrote about the George Droid meme and how crazy and depraved this culture of mocking death had become in the wake of recent changes on platforms that allow unfiltered hate speech. But all of that fell on deaf ears, of course, until now. But I want to make something very clear. It is definitive that this morbid internet culture originates on the right. More specifically, the meme lords of 4chan and Reddit, the politicians and public figures that normalized and emboldened them, and the social media companies that make money by fanning the flames of all of this. And that has radicalized and desensitized both sides of the political spectrum. And we tried to warn you before it backfired. But that's all I can fit in this video. If you want my full essay on the topic.
Interesting stuff, as always. Talk about a breakdown. I mean, did he break that down or what, Niele?
Didn't do nothing. That's what he didn't do nothing. That's what it was. Didn't do nothing. But yeah, I think he brings up a great point as to where it all started from and where we are today. And we know that what he's saying is true, Stacy, because yesterday I watched the news and I watched the Republicans go on a press tour attacking the left. I watched the what's our guy Ted Cruz. I watched him go off on one of the journalists on CNN about the left, and then the news broke yesterday that in the aftermath of Charlie Kirk's murder, Trump's DOJ deleted a study from its site stating right-wing violence continues to outpace all other types of terrorism and domestic violence. And so when we hear that and we hear what that young man was saying about how all of this came to be, now Donald Trump is in control, and the number one threat to this country is Republicans, MAGAs, outrights, and they've totally erased it from the Department of Justice, and we are at their mercy.
Well, absolutely. Austin says he remembers. And David Youngblood says we will not accept blame for right-wing hate. And Nancy Wall says that they believe the louder and more they say it, people will believe the lie. And David again, they were very loud. Exactly. There's no left-wing mass murderers, is what David Youngblood says. But the thing is, for the hypocrisy continues to be in your face for them to say, that this stuff coming from the left or whatever. It shouldn't be coming from anybody. It should not be anybody who's holding these positions of power, anybody who's holding these positions of leadership, the president, the congressman, the senator, anybody who is in the cabinet. It should not. I don't care whether you represent yourself as a Democrat or a Republican or a MAGA. We didn't see this. To be frank, you didn't see Democrats do this when they had power. You didn't see that.
Not at all.
Whether you agree with them or not, whether you are a Democrat, Republican, or whatever, I don't recall, not in my lifetime. I know in previous times, yes, you probably can make a case, but not in my lifetime. Have I seen? I didn't see it in Republicans either until 2016. So
when things happened in this country prior to the Trump Klan, there was a sense of whether you're Republican or Democrat. When tragic things happen, we are one. In the words of Frankie Beverly, we are one. But right now, what really scares me is the way that they are extremely attacking, nonprofit organizations. I think about Black Lives Matter. I think about Black Voters Matter. I think about people who are on the front line trying to preserve our elections. Our poll workers, they'll start being victimized again because they'll say, oh, those are Democratic poll workers. So then, you'll have people attacking them. And the sad part about it is there's no recourse. I heard Benny Thompson is sending a letter to the Department of Justice about the lynching of 2 Black men in Mississippi on Monday. It's going to fall on deaf ears. I think that I was talking, I think it was to Greer yesterday, saying I really believe that it is still important to follow the process, to have it documented, but there is going to be no recourse as to what is happening to people of color in this nation because the Klan is in control.
Well, there's a case right now, the Trump administration before the Supreme Court. Now we know they got the Supreme Court to side with them on this whole immigration thing and ICE, but now they are plainly stating that what they want the Supreme Court to allow is them to arrest anyone without so-called probable cause. They want, and let's face it, this Supreme Court could very well go for it.
For sure.
And I know Greer wants to jump in because she says we missed the point on that.
Because I really want this to be something that we don't miss in this conversation about what Khalil was saying. I remember when the Trayvon Martin, murder took place. I, along with a number of parents, took pictures of my children in hoodies and posted them, right? And the didn't do nothing. The whole idea is that one of the important things that he said was the adults, because we understand, we experienced this, it happened and we moved on, but there was trauma that generation had. And I think that's really significant and important to say, because what we're hearing, especially with this particular generation, these crimes that are taking place, it's that generation that have come of age, right? They started creating these vile and hateful memes about traumatic incidents, right? And one of the things that there's a partnership that's growing between the Black Press and Honest Impact. One of the reasons why they came to be is because of the trauma that Black people experience online on a daily basis, right? So we moved on as adults, right? We moved on, but these kids, turn this into theatrics, something. So they're in some ways desensitized to that trauma. And, Khalil comes out of that generation. Right. And I think that's something to really kind of speak to, that we moved on. Like, I took pictures of my kids in hoodies, but that generation created memes and continue to do that. And you got a kid who goes and shoots, Charlie Kirk, allegedly, because he wasn't hardcore enough, right? And you know what I mean? You got Dylan Roof, who goes into, that was somewhat of a different time, but still, who goes into a church because, he wanted to prove. These are young people that are doing that are experiencing trauma. And our kids are too. And so that the reason why I wanted, that became my pick, because I really wanted to speak to that, right? We move on because we've lived through these kinds of things, right? We're trying to fight that fight. But what about our young people who've come of age, the millennials, who are traumatized?
Right. I mean, I think that, they're just having the Black experience that we all have had. And I also think that we talked about yesterday, we had trauma too when we seen those postcards. And so I think we're all trauma, baby boomers, Gen Xers, millennials, Gen Zers. We're all traumatized. I mean, that is a component of having a Black experience in America, is trauma. And I think that I remember being at the LA Sentinel when Trayvon Martin passed. And, we held the press conference. Danny Bakewell Sr. had the Skittles in his hand. Reverend Cecil Chip Murray was there. And we all had on hoodies because it just impacted. And I don't think that ever left us. I mean, Trayvon Martin was the beginning of Black Lives Matter, which is a movement that is partly built on millennials. And it's a movement that has a space for Gen Zers. And I think that they identify in that space. So, I mean, I think we all have, we've all experienced trauma. We all have it because it's just a part of being Black in America, but it's also a part of our resilience in who we are because it makes us stronger.
Yeah, Danielle Pierre says if they're not desensitized, they are quote unquote crashing out. And David says you're right. Black people have been traumatized since 1619, day in and day out. And that's the story.
Yeah, only the technology is different.
Only the technology is different. Yep. And it's tiring. It's very exhausting.
It's exhausting.
You do. I've seen more, like I said yesterday, I see more and more people talking about being exhausted. More and more Black folks. And it's all, listen, and we just starting.
Right. We're trying to keep our joy, right? We laugh about Boots on the Ground, the Beyonce concert, the Chris Brown concert.
I post all my Prince stuff.
Right. We got Shaka Khan and the other divas, Patty, Gladys, and Stephanie. We are trying, but no matter what we do, like you got white on white crime happening and they still trying to bring us into it, right?
constantly.
They didn't got, their people are killing each other. So then they want to come and, allegedly, which we do believe, and within our hearts, we believe it's true. 2 Black men were lynched on Monday. And that's what
Mhm.
I'm saying. It's not the lynching. It is the historical trauma that goes along with that. It's the trauma of a Black mother, okay, a Black father now having to fear for their kids, especially in the South, because you don't know where it's coming from. So now you got to be in the house before sun goes down because you don't know what they're going to do.
Mhm.
And then
Yep.
you see the leadership of this country, the federal government on the news all day yesterday, basically saying that they're coming after Black folks.
Yeah, Quinn says that our kids seem more fragile to the American Black experience. Um, Madison says every time I see my 35-year-old son wearing a hoodie in Virginia, I start praying. And
Mm,
Orangey says you had white people celebrating Black Death on camera since Dr. King.
mm,
Yeah, so there, there you have it. Oh, yep. There.
mm.
Beautiful. Yeah, it is. It, it is very exhausting. Yeah, those are Grizz kids, just beautiful. But for anybody Black who says that they're not uh affected by any of this or not in some way tired of any of this, then look, you're living under a rock, or you've been brainwashed, or you just uh, you gravitate towards slavery. That's the bottom line, and you're okay with it. That is it. Nancy Wall says that's the thing, fear, since they can't get a race war. Um, we're seeing so much of people talk about um, you, you know Black versus white or whatever. They've been trying to manufacture that for a long time, and now they have the people in place who really not, they don't want a race war. They want to either get rid of us by either shipping us out of here or killing us or plowing the field. That's
Hmm.
that's what it comes down to. So it's three choices that they want to give us, and that's where we at
Right.
right now. And speaking of which, all the times America repeated its racist past and why, you need to know this. The Root did a fantastic article that reminds us that America has never stopped repeating its racist past. Modern day police brutality, of course, is nothing new. It is the same violence born out of slave patrols and Jim Crow, the same brutality that took George Floyd's life. Lynching may have changed forms, but the terror remains. And in fact, it hasn't really changed forms what we saw yesterday, right? The
Mhm.
Immigration Act of 1924 banned whole nations, just as Trump now bans and deports. HBCUs were attacked after Abraham Lincoln's assassination, just as they face bomb threats today. White retaliation followed the end of slavery, and it came again after Barack Obama's presidency. Every time Black America takes a step forward, this country makes sure to find ways to drag us back. And that is I thought it was a great piece, the Root put together yesterday, Niele.
I know there was a meme going around that white folks take credit for everything but racism. Rock and roll, they steal it. You know what I'm saying? R&B and hip hop, they want it. They want to control it, but they never take credit for racism.
It is so true. Orange says when they kick me out, I am taking some of these Black sellouts with me. Yeah, you see a lot of that too, Orangey, unfortunately. Dr. Marilyn said facts without question. Um, Also, yesterday, I thought was interesting. And this morning, I got to tell you, I was perusing social media this morning too. But Black social media they rose up because they are determined. There are, Niele, Black folks determined to preserve and document our history. I mean, there was folks even in that sewer hole called X. Um, they were posting Cecil Williams drinking from the white water fountain, reminding folks this is a part of American history. Donna Brazil was one of many who posted the picture of Peter the beaten slave. Bernice King posted several times about Black history, including what she says. She says her father taught about and sought to eradicate the triple evils of militarism, however you say that word, extreme, materialism, poverty, and racism. These interconnected, devastating blights against humanity persist today, and so many are willing vessels for them. And many others posted. That's what Bernice King posted, and many others posted about the hangings that we spoke about yesterday. And there were plenty of mentions of Malcolm Jamal Warner and other African Americans who contributed greatly to the culture. So they were out. They had been out in full force on social media. Black folks.
I love it. I know you mentioned Cecil Williams, and I know that Actively Black had a lot to do with this moment of Black history lessons and made our civil rights icons very contemporary at their fashion show last week. I think we talked about it yesterday, but Cecil Williams actually walked the runway. Which was a lesson because that crowd is probably predominantly millennials and Gen Xers. I mean Gen Zers. And so, you had the Ruby Bridges walking, you had the King's kids walking, as well as Malcolm X Kings, and like starting the show off with the millennial talking about their experience. I think this is like a good path to see that something is catching their attention, right? Something is teaching them lessons. And this is where you see on social media a multi-generational conversation happening. You have the millennials, you have the baby boomers, and even Trey Reed. Yeah, Trey Reed is going around, and it's important. I saw a post this morning that said, our babies should be able to live and thrive in this country. And then they had a picture of him. And so I think that, a lot of people, like you said, we're exhausted, and the realization is coming that, the Klan is back. They're back old ways and new ways.
Yeah, and Ben Crump, speaking of Trey Reed, announced that he will be doing a civil rights investigation there, which is great to hear because Ben Crump, Black America's Attorney General. Yeah, so he's going to undertake that task, and we'll see what happens.
Yeah, so like with the Department of Justice, we knew, I believe her name is Kristen Clark was there, right? The Black woman that, and she was over civil rights. And we knew that, the documentation is so important. Sometimes, even if like nothing, it's on record because it'll make a difference. Like, look at all of these court cases that people reference in the Supreme Court, the state Supreme Court, that actually helps people win their cases. So it has to be documented, but we have nobody within the Department of Justice to be able to lean on when these types of things happen now, because the Klan is in control.
Well, and then look at that. I think you mentioned this earlier. The Department of Justice has removed a study showing that white supremacist and far-right violence continues to outpace all other types of terrorism and domestic violent extremism in the U.S.
They pulled it off the website. And not only did they pull it off the website, but you could tell that there was a memo that went out to MAGA, the Klan, all of their pundits that speak on all of these news channels to double down on the left. So they erased this from the website, which is proven through statistics from police departments, right? I mean, it's proven that white men, predominantly white men of baby boomers, of Gen Xers, of millennials, and from Gen Z, white males are the number one threat to this country. Facts proven. They erased it. and then they had attack. They went on an attack of the left yesterday, and the left only means black folks for the most part.
That's what it means. Yeah, let's be real. It's just not about Democrats or anybody else. This is about black folks. Radical, because these are the terms that they use, right, to describe black folks. And so let's be real about it. I'm glad you
And we
called
thought
that
it
out.
was all about immigration reform. That's what they told us. But it's ended back
Yeah,
up in our parking lot.
absolutely, absolutely. And that has always been their plan. Let's just face it. And their plan always includes to do something to distract. And on the other hand, while they're trying to distract with doing one thing, they doing some diabolical stuff
Right.
behind that. So that is
Keep posting, y'all. Keep
yeah.
telling our story. Keep telling the truth and keep speaking out.
And RNG says what we are talking about right now, young black people don't see it that way. And yeah, we're seeing a lot of indoctrinations
Right,
going
right.
on too. So
And these conversations that we're having now, it's not just me and Stacy, but it's also you guys in the chat. These are important conversations. So since we're talking about social media, we put out a promo for Let It Be Known yesterday. It's on the Black Press USA handle. Make sure you go follow Black Press USA on all social platforms and reshare our promo. Help us promote this show so we can have more people join the chat and get this information that y'all love so much. We appreciate y'all, but help us spread the word about Let It Be Known since we spread Black history and facts. Tell them about us.
wasn't there a song about tell them about us or something like that? Even ICE, Dr. Jones says even ICE has reported that these massive facilities to house these snatched human beings violate numerous human rights codes. It's like we talked about yesterday. We don't know what happened to those folks at Alligator Alcatraz, those missing, all hundreds of missing people, missing immigrants from
Right.
Alligator Alcatraz.
No accountability. And when we do go to the detention centers and we do ask questions, we get arrested.
Yeah, and we certainly appreciate RNG. He has his Swag Sports show, and he says he'll be using our promo for his commercial breaks. So we appreciate that a whole
Thank
lot.
you. And Patricia
Yeah,
Jackson says, and hit the like button.
and
Please
hit the
do,
like button.
y'all. Like it,
Yeah.
share it, do whatever. And RNG, I saw one of your posts yesterday after the show. But yes, I was there when Jubilee was there and did the song and everything. Giddy up, do the duck, do the duck, do the duck. We did it. Slide and giddy up, did it all.
Yep. And it's so important to boost each other as RNG always does. It's not just us he does it with, it's other black owned and operated shows and operations. So we certainly got to support RNG Swag Sports. It's like we talk about Memphis Jokes and his show. That's
Mhm.
entertainment. RNG does a lot of sports. And we have headlines and hot topics that other folks don't really want to talk about on Let It
Right,
Be Known.
right. And the things that you just talked about, RNG show and they're black centered, and they
Right.
uplift our experience. And so it's so important. And I think I'm hoping and I really believe that now we'll see a lot more support or interest in these types of shows because the television networks and streaming is being taken over by all of Donald Trump's friends, which means that the truth is not going to come out and we're going to live in a different type of world that we never really imagined.
Yeah, 100%. So it's absolutely important to support these type of platforms and the Black Press USA, the Black Press of America, because that's the entity that's been documenting history from before slavery ended, 1827. And we're still fighting to document that history. So if it's in your will to do so, make sure you support. Grocery prices are now at the highest in 3 years, and no one feels the squeeze more than Black households. Living in food deserts, boxed out by supermarket redlining, and left with overpriced corner stores as their only option, Black families pay more for less. Inflation hits everyone, but studies continue to show that it climbs even faster for Black communities, forcing impossible choices between what's affordable and what's healthy. And of course, the devastating tariffs and the rising labor costs only has served to widen the divide between the haves and the have-nots, leaving those already struggling to shoulder the heaviest burden. The studies have come out. The prices, we were earlier this year talking about the price of eggs. Now it's everything. It's
Oh my God.
everything, Niele.
A tomato is almost $5. And I love a tomato. I can go to the grocery store and buy 10 items and be out of $100+ It's ridiculous. And it's just like all of these promises that Donald Trump made, none of them are true except for his rich friends. Okay. Those are the only people that are benefiting from his presidency. And so, I wish that it could hit his voters and not us, but we all have to suffer. And that's the scary part for me, Stacy, is that we have to suffer or be the victims of his chaos.
Well, yeah, and it's not only did he promise certain things that he didn't do, but the things that the diabolical stuff he promised he is doing. Him in Project 2025.
Right.
But this is an individual who simply, it's not new that he doesn't care. He didn't care when he was Donald Trump private citizen.
Mm-hmm.
What you see is what you got. I've heard people, and I've talked about it, like Howard Stern and even Russell Simmons and others talk about how the Donald Trump they knew, was not this guy. And I'm saying that can't be true. It can't be true
Yeah.
because we saw in New York, we saw the racism. We saw the disgust he had for those who were people of color, those who did not have money or
Mm-hmm.
fame, because he gravitated and used certainly the hip hop community a big time, um, to keep his name important back in the 80s and 90s. And so now he got the power. He doesn't need those guys from hip hop. He doesn't need
Mm-hmm.
those other Black power brokers and celebrities. He has all the power now. And so he can be free to be who he is. And he's shown
Right.
that to us.
But I don't even think the whole grocery situation, I don't even think he knows how much a tomato is, nor does he care.
Nor
And
does he
that
care.
is the problem. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Like if one of his aides went in there and said, hey, the American people are struggling, he would, you know what I mean? There's no listening ear within that administration at all. But Dr. Joni says same with housing, same with
Mhm.
healthcare, same with
Mhm.
transportation.
Mhm.
Michelle Madison says I went to the grocery store to spend $50 and ended up spending close to 100. That is the number one story when you go to the grocery store now.
Well,
$75 for a bag of
a
groceries.
bag of groceries.
Mike V said my avocado was 10 for $3. And Shonda H says it has hit his vote. It has to hit his voters. Many of them haven't connected the dots yet or remain in denial.
Well, I
And
think it has been hitting his voters, and that's part of. So he doesn't care about that because, again, he doesn't plan on folks being able to vote anymore.
right.
So that I think that's another part of the diabolical thing that's going on. But here's a good question, I think, Niele, and I think Dr. Joni is right. Open it up to the chat. She says, "Do you feel like people with the biggest platforms and usually the most money are using those platforms to spread this information? If not, how to help that to happen?"
Well, I
Now,
think that So it's interesting that you said that with these platforms, because Morgan, I can't think of her last name, but she is the owner of Blavity. She's a millennial. She went on TikTok the other day and was like, if she was a Democratic strategist, she said that the Republican Party has spent tons of money on podcasters to help amplify their message. She said if Democrats were smart, they would invest in podcasters, shows like this, and individuals who have the power to tell their story, so that it's not just them doing it, but it is the podcasters. And so, the DCCC, they have a huge year ahead of them because they're the ones that control most of the money for all of these congressional races. They need to start investing some of their monies into people of color, which they traditionally have not, which is why the Black community has a huge problem with them. The DNC needs to do the same. And all of these political PACs, these white run political PACs that need our votes, they have the money, but they need our votes. So it's like a reciprocity that needs to start happening. But Democratic Party is silent on that.
Well, Greer says because they won't spend any money because of their arrogance, and also they think they own the Black vote.
They do. And then you have even the Republican Party, like we have people here, like the Big Cheese, they're in our chat. You know what I'm saying? And they're everywhere, but we're nowhere. We need to get active.
Yeah, and they're irrational, just like this individual. Because I mean, it's just
look,
you can't change that.
A broke clock is right twice a day.
Right,
sometimes
right.
Big Cheese, he got some points, just not most of the time.
Well, I mean, because it just there's no nothing else. It's like Trump supporters when you ask them, well, why do you support him? They can't really tell you. They can't articulate it, and then they'll tell you the same thing over and over again, and that's what he does. The same thing over Democrats this, Democrats that.
Right.
Okay.
But and the thing about it is, we were talking about groceries, and Big Cheese, you went on a rampage about immigration. How do you feel about your groceries being so expensive? Does that bother you?
Yeah.
Let us know in the chat. Let us know about your grocery bill and how you feel about that.
Yeah. And and part of the problem with Democrats, as Orange G says, they'll wait 3 months before the election, act like they know who the Black press is. No, they'll wait until 2 weeks before the election to act like it, and then they'll shoot some crumbs, if at all that. And that is part of what cost them last year. You can argue with the wall, but that was, even, and I'm not just talking about us, Black Press of America, but I'm talking about others like Roland Martin. They waited to the last minute, the last second, and that's on them. And that's also goes to what Greer says. They think that they own us. They think that, we're going to be lockstep with them. And yet they continue to ignore it. They barely return phone calls. So, in a time of need, shoot. But nonetheless, Shonda H says some of them are many about the podcast and the others. My question is, why are so many people buying the misinformation? Because truth doesn't matter to some, like we like to believe. Clicks and views win the popularity on social media.
Yeah.
Yeah. And David says that the Big Cheese told us that it was all about the eggs.
and Big Cheese also said his groceries aren't high, so I don't know where he must be going to the actual farms and just taking his shit because everybody else is paying. Okay.
Yeah. So speaking of other platforms, Charlemagne and Dame Dash and Cameron and Adrian Brana showed us the right and wrong way to handle matters, apparently. While Dame Dash went off the rails and buried the lead as to why he was supposedly on the Breakfast Club, the Cameron interview displayed how Black men should protect Black women. as Jamel Hill summed it up by posting on X that, quote, really glad Cam stepped in there. What some men don't understand is that women will be wholly uncomfortable and try to laugh their way through it because men don't handle rejection well. But the
Well, what did
two
I miss? What did I miss? What did he do
so
to women? What
s-
did he
s-
say
ok-
about women?
well, what happened on the, and we can get yeah, we can get this part out the way, and then we can get back to the Dame Dash because I know you are totally up on that one. But the Cameron, he was interviewing. His show had Adrian Brana on, and
Okay, and who
Adrian
is that?
Brana,
Yeah. Okay.
the, the fighter,
Okay.
and um, so the young lady who sits in with Cam and Mason Cam, apparently a very attractive young black woman, and he just immediately he starts essentially hitting on her. And Stat, yeah, Stat is her name. They call her that's a nickname,
Mhm.
Stat Queen or something. But
Okay.
nonetheless, and it kept going on, and Cameron said, "Hey, a couple of times. He even one time even said her boyfriend is here." Yet Adrian Broner kept going on and lost the point of the interview. And
Okay.
finally, Cam steps up and says, "You know what? Let me pay you because apparently they pay folks for coming on." He reached in his pocket, got some cash, gave it to him, and said, "Nah, you got to go. This is over with," and kicked him
Mhm.
out.
Okay.
The young lady was obviously trying to keep it together, trying to keep it professional, and Cam saw the uncomfortableness of it. Obviously, he works with her, and so he probably knows certain cues, and that was just out of pocket. This guy seemed like he was a drunk sailor, and I'm not saying he was drinking or drunk or high, but I'm saying he appeared like a drunken sailor would, and he just kept going on and on. And Cam stepped up.
Yeah, I mean it happens a lot. Being a woman in any type of corporate and especially male dominated industry. I mean, sometimes men do it and they don't even realize it. But I mean that is a historical thing in this country. You know what I'm saying? And going back to, the Trump clan, they want to take us back there. I mean, you could tell even by how Trump treats Pam Bondi and the other women that he's put in leadership. He's very condescending towards them.
Mhm.
And who knows what he does to them when the cameras are off, with his, gestures and touching and all of that. And so, I mean, good for Cam for speaking up. Good for
Yeah.
him.
And of course, the Breakfast Club, Southbound 3000 said the Breakfast Club show white America the worst and black America keeping us divided. Um, that interview, oh my gosh, Niele, I mean, what can you say about that interview?
It was giving me Cat Williams, Shay. Like I just felt like Dame Dash was trying to go for that Cat Williams effect on the
Mm.
Shannon Sharp show. You know what I'm saying? Because the things that he was saying, he said that he was the CEO of Revolt, and they came out and said that he said he was the chairman of Revolt. And the publicist, as well as the chairman, confirmed that Dame Dash is not the chairman. There is no acquisition path on the table. He attacked Charlemagne, his
Mhm.
manhood. You know what I'm saying? And I mean, it was just, it was giving me Cat Williams. That's all it gave me.
Well, but even that, having said that, Cat didn't make a I hate to say it, but he didn't make a fool out of himself on Club Shay Shay, right? I mean, Dame Dash started calling him, gay and all that other stuff, and it was just like, what is the purpose of your visit to the Breakfast Club this morning?
So that we would be talking about him today. He was probably one of the top 3 stories trending yesterday all over social media. That was his intention. That's what I'm saying.
Now,
It was giving me Cat Williams because his intention was to be the talk of the town. I mean, and I think a lot of the things that he was saying were low key jabs at Jay-Z. about how,
Mhm.
loyalty and, how you handle certain situations, you know what I'm saying? So there was a lot of that. I felt like he wanted to get some things off his chest with saying them, but not really addressing the elephant in the room of who he was talking about.
Well,
I
he
think
kinda did though, right? Because he claimed that, Charlemagne must have a thing for Jay-Z, a romantic interest in Jay-Z, to put it
Well,
mildly.
see, I only was watching the clips.
Okay,
But you
okay.
I was only watching the clips, but I mean, and I think that there's some things in the past.
Mhm.
I mean, come on, Charlemagne used to be with Wendy Williams. There was a lot of dirt and
Oh,
smut
that's what
that
he
was
brought up.
happening on
Mhm,
that show. Okay,
mhm.
so Charlemagne is not no
Without
squeaky clean
question.
top guy, and so I think there was a lot of animosity of the past that was there as well.
Yeah.
So it did
And
what
he
it was
brought up
supposed to do.
he brought up that infamous video of these guys, trying to attack Charlemagne, and Charlemagne ran, and, he was getting on Charlemagne for running. I'm telling you, who in that situation, as Charlemagne, like, who wouldn't run in that situation? Dame
Yeah.
That's why he should have stayed and fight like a man. If I remember correctly, it was like 4 or 5 dudes, and they wasn't small dudes.
Hmm.
And they were going to, they probably would have killed Charlemagne if he didn't run. So,
Probably so.
yeah, I mean, he lived to talk about it another day, and bank another few $1 million too. I'm not a Charlemagne fan, but I mean, come on, that that was just crazy that Dame Dash, you got all dolled up, and I
I
know
mean,
he
I
would
totally
hate
believe
to
that was
use the
his
word.
intent. That
Yeah,
was totally he. I mean, he's still trending. He's still going to be trending for this. Maybe until something else happens. But he probably has the rest of the week for this right here.
Southbound says, "Ain't too many times Dame has been wrong," and
Oh wow.
RNG says, "Say it ain't so. Charlemagne is sweet as gingerbread." Gingerbread.
Oh, okay. So see, it's interesting. Some of the men are like, okay, they rolling with Dame
They
Dash. That
rolling with Dame Dash.
sounds
I
right to me.
see. Okay.
Uh,
I'm not overly educated on the whole situation. So yeah, listen, I'm enjoying what the chat is saying here. I'm trying to get a little education here. Dr. Marilyn said he needed a TED talk, Niele.
he needed a TED talk. Yeah, I mean, because I'm pretty sure he has a lot to say and could give us some good. Oh, there's the teeth. Now, why would we do that? Why would we do that?
Oh my gosh.
But so Cameron did respond to the whole lie about revoting being the chairman. He said Cameron tweeted, "You can't say he's lying through his teeth. He ain't got none. Lying through your gums is treacherous. LOL." I just thought I'd share that because we just showed him with no teeth. So yeah, so what do we have here? Oh, and so at the end of the day, I think his objective was to trend this week, and mission accomplished, Dame Dash.
Mm,
All right, we
mm.
have a few more headlines to get through. We're going to start at the Pentagon. The Pentagon's name change to the Department of War could cost billions. Now, this is according to Politico. And the reason is that every piece of infrastructure tied to the Department of Defense would need to be updated to the Department of War. Now, I'm talking about agencies, military bases worldwide, all signage, uniforms, badges, stationery, websites, and digital systems. So, this radical white nationalist name change actually triggers years of logistical work and massive costs. And so,
Mm.
once again, Trump putting these unqualified people in these positions, and they're doing these, I have a bright idea, and not vetting the idea and implementing it. And then, oh, oh, oh.
Here's the thing, they don't mind spending $1 billion on something so stupid, as opposed to, say, keeping healthcare costs down, keeping food prices down. You
But I
know,
guarantee you they didn't vet it. They just
No,
changed the
they didn't
name.
vet it. They didn't vet
They
it. Of
didn't
course
vet the
not.
idea.
Mm-mm,
They didn't know
mm-mm. Of course
the
not.
cost of it
No,
all, of what it would
no, of
take.
course not. It didn't matter. It doesn't matter to them, like I said. But you're right. I agree wholeheartedly. There's no way they vetted it.
No, they didn't vet it. So yeah, so and that's $1 billion of taxpayers' dollars that we're going to be
Yeah,
spending on, and
taxpayer dollars.
and guess what? They're going to half-ass do it. They're going to half-ass do it. Look, it might the name change might make it in Europe, but it ain't gonna make it in Zimbabwe. Half the country is gonna be Department of Defense. Half the world is gonna be the Department of Defense, and the other half is gonna be Department of War. And this is how racist they are. The Department of War is gonna be for all of the nations of color. And they're gonna leave the Department of Defense for all the white countries in Europe. That's what they're gonna do, guarantee you. Yeah. All right, and in more name changes, White House press secretary confirmed yesterday that Trump is completely serious about his plans to block approval of the new NFL stadium for the Washington Commanders unless they go back to calling themselves the Washington Redskins.
Of course, we talked about this some time ago. That's part of what he's pushing for, and like I said too, that's new stadium that they're building or want to build in DC. He wants it called Trump Stadium.
It's not going to happen either if it does. And now this is where, like, I know Magic Johnson is a minority owner in the Washington Commanders, but it'll be interesting to see. These are opportunities for Black influential people to start speaking up.
It is, and I hope that he will. But I am now of the mind that these most, if not all, of these Black influencers, multi-billionaires, they are so detached from the rest of us that they could care less. I could be wrong, and I know people would dispute that, but that's how I feel about it.
Well, I just hope there's a few. Everybody in the civil rights era wasn't,
right
on board. But thank God for Aretha Franklin and people like Harry Belafonte and Sidney Poitier, Mahalia Jackson, and so many others. But not everybody did it. Like Billie Holiday and Strange Fruit. That song. So thank God that there will be some.
Right.
Because it ain't gonna be all. And finally, let's head to Florida, where Governor DeSantis celebrates Florida's Second Amendment sales tax holiday. Have you heard of this? The sales tax holiday in Florida?
Oh gosh, no! I try to stay away from Florida.
Well, check this out. The holiday offers tax exemptions for guns. Talking about rifles, shotguns, ammunition, hunting, fishing, and camping gear. And these tax exemptions are going on right now in Florida until December 31st. What really struck me about this is when they said hunting, fishing, and camping gear, I thought about lynchings. Ropes are part of that gear. You know what I mean? And so it's more than just, you know what I mean? These are like undertones of them sending, here, go get your guns, go get your rope, go get all the things you need to victimize people of color. That's what that says to me. And it's legally being done by the governor of Florida.
MB says there are more guns in America than people. That says a whole lot too. My gosh.
So, there you have it. So I recommend if you're a Black person in Florida, go get you a gun.
Niele's Black Pantherist Niele.
But the thing about it is the Second Amendment of right is not just for white folks. Okay, it's just not for white folks.
It's not.
And at the state that we're in, you better, if you stay ready, you don't have to get ready. Because trust me, they are getting ready.
Black Pantherist Niele. She is not playing, y'all. Man, oh man. I just could only imagine.
Wait, MB says you can buy ammo in vending machines in red states.
Yep. The world is passing away, and so is its desire. That's all I got to say.
Well, those are your headlines for today.
Oh my gosh. This it's just it's an awful time, folks. It's an awful, awful time.
And
But
if
let's
you think it's not, then you have a problem, and you better come up and it real fast to what's happening, because Stacy, you're 100% right.
listen, some Black history on this date, on this day in 1861, Mary Peake, the daughter of a free Black woman, founded the first school for freedmen on the grounds of what would become Hampton University. Attendance at the school quickly grew, and it marked the beginning of the Freedmen's Education Movement, where Northern aid societies, the Freedmen's Bureau, and African Americans as a whole established schools throughout the South to educate newly emancipated people. So it's a great history moment today, way back in 1861 with Mary Peake.
Yeah, and it's always a pleasure and a treat to celebrate our HBCUs, especially now in the times that we live in. But let's fast forward to 1984. On this day, Vanessa Williams was crowned Miss America. Now, of course, she made history as the first Black woman to win the Miss America title. And though she eventually gave up her crown, how many people know why she had to give it up? Put it in the
Uh,
chat.
Vanessa the
she went,
Undresser.
she went on to have a successful career in music and acting, and that is true.
Yeah.
I mean, in the was it the 80s or late
It was
80s,
the 80s.
early
It was the
90s?
early 80s.
Is it early? No, I'm talking about when her singing
A
career, when
career.
she
Oh,
had
yeah, yeah, right.
Dreamin' and I've
Yeah,
Got Work to Do and Save the Best for Last. She went on to have a great music career as well as acting.
yeah, yeah. Those the thing about it, and I remember it well when this happened. I mean, it was obviously somebody's was really upset that this Black woman had become Miss America. These racy photos were taken. In fact, she was underage when they took those photos, so she really should not have been blamed. um she was underage, and there was
I didn't know she
another.
was underage. I don't,
Yeah, she was
okay.
17 years old. um, and there was another person, another woman in the photos as well. And they held on to those photos until that moment when she won that crown. And Dr. Marilyn said the pictures were tastefully done. She was helping out a photographer that she knew.
Mhm.
This is her story. And she agreed to take some pictures, and one thing led to another, where he wanted it this way and that way and this way and this other person. And that was that. It
Right.
came out later, and she had the I'll never forget the headline, of course, the New York Post, Vanessa the Undresser.
I
And
remember that. I remember that.
yeah, and
Yeah.
so she went through a lot. So to build her career after that, it's not like today, folks. To build her career after that scandal was amazing, because today, the more you take your clothes off, the more
Right.
you're in sexual positions and stuff like that. Especially in that case, women on women or whatever, folks. It tends to Kim Kardashian. That wasn't women on women, but it made the Kardashians, the sex
Right.
tape.
Well, I mean, this Mag Penthouse. I mean, it helped because how many other Miss Americas do you know? We know who Vanessa Williams is
Right,
because of the scandal.
right.
That's how we know who
Well,
she
we
is.
know
So,
also because she was the first Black Miss America, but you're
right.
right, the scandal.
Yeah.
But coming back from a scandal, and if I've got the dates wrong, the year wrong, but it was like what year was that? 82, 83, 84 maybe. But coming back at that time from that type of scandal was really unheard of. And
Right.
she was able to, like you said, parlay that into a singing career, acting. And there's another Vanessa Williams, another very famous Vanessa
Yeah.
Williams, the
Actress.
actress.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Actress. Mhm.
and I remember I brought that only because I remember that one of them started to put the L. Whoever's got the middle name starts with an L. They decided to start putting the L in their credits. So
Yeah, but
but
Vanessa Williams, she is definitely an American jewel. And I'm not
she's
just
an
saying, I
icon.
mean, she has that, a comeback story. She has a great comeback story.
Yeah.
And so, today we remember her as Miss America. Now, this is actually was Donald Trump into pageants at this time? We know he was hanging with
I
Jeffrey
don't know.
Epstein
He
at
had
the
later,
time.
right? He had later bought the pageant. I don't think I don't think he had
Yeah.
owned the
But we
pageant at
know
the
he
time.
was eyeing it because, this is around the time him and Jeffrey Epstein were in full swing. So we have not forgot about those Epstein files. We have talked about everything today, but at the end of the day, we want those files released because this was when he was in his heyday in 1983.
Yeah, and you see how the UK greeted Trump, right? They rolled out some huge they projected
Oh,
Epstein and Trump
yeah.
together and all of that. Yeah,
I love it.
very very good welcome. I want to just quickly because Southbound 3000 brings this up, and I was looking at this yesterday. He said shout out to Jerry of Ben and Jerry Ice Cream who resigned from the company over the injustice in America. Um, yeah, the company that they sold Ben and Jerry's to, Unilever, apparently was sort of, well, I won't say sort of. According to Ben and Jerry's, they started to really capitulate to Donald Trump, which goes against every fiber of what Ben and Jerry's has stood for.
Right.
And the CEO, the founder, the co-founder, Jerry, yesterday decided to resign instead of
Mm.
going along with it.
Yeah, that's not surprising at all. I wonder if that's the same one that cussed out the people in one of those congressional committee hearings, and they drug them out. So that's not surprising at all. They have always been on the forefront. I remember when I
They
was at
have.
Rock the Vote, they had a Rock the Vote ice cream flavor. So they gave Ava DuVernay a flavor. So they
Yes.
are always at the forefront they gave Tom Joyner ice cream flavor. They are always at the forefront of progress and just movement and supporting people of color. And so that's
Yeah.
sad to see that they're leaving because that means that ice cream is not going to be the same.
Not gonna be the same. Nope. You won't have those specialty flavors that you're talking about that they would make.
Yeah.
Yeah. Greer says we need to call them. Yeah, they have. We had the one of the guys on the show back during the George Floyd situation, and they had always yes, Greer. They've always said call us. They've always said that. They've told Dr. Chavis that call us. I'll leave it there. Our black-owned newspaper of the day is the Sacramento Observer. It was founded in 1962 at a time when black voices were still largely absent from mainstream media in the region. The Sacramento Observer has thrived in lifting up forgotten and popular voices. 6 times the newspaper has been named the nation's top black newspaper, receiving the John B. Rushworm Trophy from the National Newspaper Publishers Association. So our black-owned paper of the day, the Sacramento Observer, and Larry Lee is out there uh, in the capital of
Right,
California doing his
right,
thing.
right. And so, if you really want to know about what's happening with Prop 50 out here in California, I know that Arnold Schwarzenegger spoke at USC this week, and he is opposing Prop 50, and that is the ballot measure that will allow California to expand their redistricting efforts to counter what's happening in Texas. And so, with Arnold Schwarzenegger, being a no and Gavin Newsom really pushing this, the Sacramento Observer is going to be the black newspaper that you'll want to go to get the latest and the greatest as to what's happening in California and Capitol Hill. And then you might see it on Black Press USA, which is where you're going to find all the black headlines from the United States that are uplifting and empowering the black experience. So visit blackpressusa.com.
Absolutely. And folks, we will see you again tomorrow. Have a great one. We appreciate you joining. Let it be known.